Wow, chaos, drama, slips and changes galore in the EFL Championship. Burnley jumped from third to first to take the lead in the title race. Middlesbrough and Bristol City jump from 7th and 8th to 5th and 6th to enter the playoff positions. Massive wins down at the bottom for Oxford and Hull, as only 2 of the bottom 10 lose in the relegation scrap. This was textbook, tense, run-in EFL Championship football, wasn't it? Here are your hot takes. Get yours down in the comments, especially if you were at a round 40 game this past weekend. And Burnley go top. How about that? You looked at the fixtures. Burnley go to 5th place Coventry. Leeds go to 23rd placed Luton. Sheffield United go to 19th place Oxford. But it's the teams in the relegation scrap that sometimes give you the hardest games at this time of the season, isn't it? And that's how it proved to be. And Burnley take advantage and go top. We know they're a resilient bunch. They're 27 undefeated, for God's sake, but they went behind 5 minutes into this one. Had you right? It might have been offside, but the goal stood. And the timing of these goals by Burnley really does exemplify their great levels of resilience. They score quickly, don't they? Anthony with his first sort of within 5 or 6 minutes of Coventry taking the lead. And then straight after half time, I know the keeper's going to come up. Dovin's now obviously out for Coventry. Collins has come in. He's out there on safari, isn't he? Anthony rolls the ball into the empty net. And that goal turned out, with the events later in the afternoon and 3 p.m. to take Burnley top of the table with 6 games to play. What about that? I wondered whether the only way Burnley would possibly make the overtake into the top 2 would be in round 44 in the much fabled head-to-head they've got against Sheffield United. I also said in my 1 to 24s, I wondered whether Sheffield United might have a cushion by then, looking at the fixtures. But right here, right now, Burnley 84, Sheffield United 83, Leeds 82. If it stays like that, all the jeopardy now would be on Sheffield United in round 44 with that deadly, deadly fixture on the list. Well played, Burnley. They took their chance, didn't they, yesterday? And that is chiefly because Sheffield United, who were the leaders going into yesterday's games, lost at Oxford in the 3 p.m. First defeat in 7. The good news for Sheffield United, I guess, is you talk about resilience and Burnley. You can say exactly the same for Sheffield United. We've talked a lot about 15 single-goal victories in the EFL. We can also say the last 3 times Sheffield United have lost, 3 defeats ago, they then did 3 straight wins. 2 defeats ago, 4 straight wins. And the last defeat is 4 wins and a draw in 5 games. So they do bounce back well. There's not a lot of games left to put together a run after a defeat, only 6. But anything like they've done after the previous 2 defeats will very much do. Fair play to Oxford, who we'll talk about in the relegation portion of this video. It's a windy day down at Oxford with the open end of that stadium. The long throws were raining in. But as I said already, it's the end of the season, and the likes of Oxford and Luton in relegation trouble, they're going to make it bloody difficult, aren't they, in these games? And that's exactly what Oxford did. And they got the win. The Blades have been imperious as well, away from home. Was it 6 away wins on the trot going into this? So Sheffield United slip up, surrender the lead. I don't know if there's Blades fans who comment and say, well, okay, I'd rather do it in round 40 than round 43, and certainly round 44, knowing what that fixture is. Get the slip out of the way, get the run going. I don't know. You tell me. We'll try and find a positive for you fans of these teams in this tense title race. And the tension is very much getting to Leeds, who slipped up again. 1 win in 6 for Leeds. I really didn't see this happening again. You looked at the stability, you looked at the squads, you looked at maybe issues with the other teams, and you could really see Leeds coming out on top. But they are doing their best to mess this up once again. A third straight draw for Leeds. And over that 6-game period where Leeds have only won once, Leeds have scored 7 points. Sheffield United have scored 13. So that's a 6-point swing. And Burnley have scored 16. So that is a 9-point swing. And this is all, of course, since those brilliant back-to-back wins over Sunderland and Sheffield United for Leeds. But it's all really, really gone south since then. Look, they changed the keeper. Ampadu came back. Nonto started. All the things the Leeds fans suggested Farkas should do in the short term, you know, the kind of minutiae, but still couldn't get the job done. I can make the argument, and we can say the same for Sheffield United as well, that you're facing teams there, Oxford and Luton, that are just going to kind of, as Daniel Farkas said, squeeze the centre, get those long throws raining in. That's going to be a theme in the relegation battle, isn't it? You know, slow the game down, make it horrible, make it difficult. I think Cameron Brannigan said the same in the Oxford interviews after that. It's not going to be pretty down there. That's what Luton did. They got the lead, didn't they, with Jones. James with a good equaliser. And it was just too much for Leeds on the day. Look, they'll much prefer their next fixture, which is away at Middlesbrough, isn't it? You think that would be more suited to their style. But there's going to be more games like this where teams just go and just try and crumble it. And Leeds, speaking of crumbling, have got to stop crumbling themselves. The good news is they gave themselves the cushion. They have blown that advantage away now, but they are essentially still 1 point off the automatics with a big superiority in goal difference, +8 on Burnley and +25 on Sheffield United. So it's not all doom and gloom, which I expect it might be from the Leeds fans in the comments, understandably after a dreadful run. But 6-game season now. Can they score one more point than Sheffield United, basically? They'll get promoted if they do. Can they score 2 more points than Burnley? Unless Burnley start hammering the goals in, they'll get promoted if they do. Brilliant stuff in the title race. Let me know your thoughts. All changed at the top. Go on, honestly, who had Burnley sneaking into first with 6 to play? Boro burst through. We'll talk about the playoffs. And Middlesbrough have all of a sudden appeared in 5th position. How about that? We've talked about low tides and low standards and stick a run together. That's what Boro have done in recent times. And there they magically appear in 5th spot. Let's just deal with Sunderland first. Apologies, Sunderland fans. We're kind of like going, well, okay, we know Sunderland are going to finish 4th. We're going to just kind of get them done. But they have won 4 in 6. And I said on the last video, I liked what I saw from Sunderland in the previous win. They're now back-to-back 1-0 wins. In fact, back-to-back 1-0 wins, back-to-back clean sheets. And Trey Hume with the goal in both of those games. So they're moving nicely into tournament mode. They've got to keep this ticking along. Great news that Enzo Lefebvre was back. He was looking fabulous before he got injured, wasn't he? And he'll win you a playoff game if you can keep it tight with his sort of, you know, the type of player he is. One of those kind of fun, flamboyant, sort of luxurious players there. That's all I'll say about Sunderland, and we'll keep talking about them. And as it kind of transpires who's more likely to finish in 5th, we can kind of look more into Sunderland as the season winds down. But yeah, looking good and doing what they need to in terms of keeping the intensity up, knowing kind of where they're going to finish already. We'll just bring the West Brom angle in, though, because obviously West Brom have lost again. I think I flagged that statistic in the playoff video I did on Friday coming into the weekend, that West Brom, other than the hot run of 6 games at the start of the season, are basically a bottom half side. And they're in kind of that type of form at the moment, aren't they? And Tony Mowbray very kind of sturdy in his philosophy in the interviews, but there's only so many rounds where you can have 21 shots, 64% possession. It's 2 wins in 9. They're not scoring, are they? 0 or 1 goals in 8 of the last 9 for the Baggies has dropped them to 8th place. Maybe there was a reason. I mean, this is a cart before the horse or horse before the cart conversation. Maybe there was a reason Carlos Corberan set West Brom up the way he did, or maybe now the West Brom players are a little bit affected by the way Carlos Corberan. So I don't know which way around that is, but certainly the downstream effect of this is they are not confident in front of goal in this running, and they've dropped down to 8th. Right, let's talk about Middlesbrough, who on Friday night won their 5th game in 7. By the way, Tommy Conway, what a lovely balletic pirouette spin, and then bam, spanked it in on the half volley, didn't he? Great goal by Conway. And they were outside when they were 2-0 up in the first 10 minutes. Illing Jr. with a deflected second gives Boro the win. They are on a great run of form, 5 wins in 7. But, and I'm sorry Boro fans, I have to do this. I have to do this. Has it been a soft run? And you can argue, well, Ben, if you're saying that, it was a hard run before. So the losing streak for Boro, they lost to Sunderland and Sheffield United and Watford, okay, but they're still in the second quartile, aren't they? And Bristol City. And then they've beaten the 5 wins in 7. Stoke, Derby, QPR, Oxford and Blackburn. And yes, I have said in this video, sides down the bottom make it hard for you. But you can make the argument that Boro are, well, does that make them a playoff side? They just appear to be struggling against good teams and beating not so good teams. You're going to finish a bit lower down than the playoffs if that's who you are. But they're on a good run and they have moved into 5th spot. And look at it now. 40 games, 60 points, low tide. We've talked about 70 as a projection. So if Boro can win, I know it's Leeds coming up on Tuesday, if they can win 3 of the last 6, that's 69. Draw 1 of the other, draw 2 of the others, that's 70, 71. I think they're in there, aren't they? Unless someone's going to win 5 or 6 out of the last 6 in that playoff race. You can't see it being much higher than that, can you? And there are head-to-heads to take into account in this as well. So, for all I'm saying, you know, opponents soft, Boro are in there on merit, and as things stand, would play Sunderland in a playoff semi-final up there in the North East. Bristol City are also in there. They beat Watford 2-1 and made the leap up above West Brom and Coventry, who started the day in 5th and 6th. Didn't they? 1 defeat in 9 for Bristol City. Who was it? McCrory and Wells got them 2-0 up in this one. By the way, at Ashton Gate, they are superb. 9 wins in 12. Pompey can match that points total since this run started, but they've played a game more. So I can say statistically, best points per game at home over that period in the whole league is Bristol City. It's a massive game coming up, isn't there, in midweek? They play West Brom. I suppose they've given themselves the luxury in terms of just the race side of this, just stay above them, that they can draw that game. But then you wonder if Coventry might overtake them. It would be massive if they can leverage that home record again and beat West Brom. Given what I've said about West Brom and what I've said about Bristol City at home, what I say, it's not my opinion. These are objective facts that West Brom are not scoring goals and not winning games, and Bristol City are very good at home. They're going to think they can do this. And I've got to say the same as I said about Boro with the points totals. Can Bristol City win 3 of the last 6? There's 69. And then what can you pick up in those remaining games? How high above 70 can you get? Look, it might be 70 that does it. God, it might be 69 that doesn't. I'm talking about 6th place here. But surely, if the managers do look at points totals, they've got to be saying, right, 70 is your total. Just get it. 3 wins and a draw. for Borough and Bristol City takes them to 70, which then means Coventry would need 3 wins and 2 draws or 4 wins, to get themselves past that total, and you start to put the pressure on. And then West Brom 2 points further back. You can start to tick off teams if you can do that. So a really good round for Bristol City and Middlesbrough. They both win, and Coventry and West Brom both lose, and the switch has been made. Can they hang in there? We've got Millwall up on the graphic there as well. They beat Pompey 2-1. They've been win-lose for 7 games now. I've flagged Ivanovic up. He scored twice before. He's 20 years old. He's now got 8 goals, I think, in his kind of maiden season here, with injury problems as well. And I think he's scoring at a rate of sort of 1 every 200 minutes as well. So if he can bump that up ever so slightly and stay fit, they may have a fabled 20-goal striker. And we've raised this in the bold predictions as well. There may be no 20-goal scorers in the EFL this season, so they are worth their weight in gold. Can Millwall make the playoffs from 9th place with 6 to go and 54 points? Probably not. If it is 70 we're looking at, then Millwall need to win all of their last 6 games to get to 72. I suppose 5 and a draw takes them to 70. That'd be a hell of a run in. But no, I'll say my usual thing. Look, if Millwall go through this 3-game week with 9 points, we'll continue the conversation there. But it's going to be very hard for them to get in. But a good win against Pompey. And yeah, we'll talk about the implications of that in the relegation battle in just a jiffy. Let's move on to it right now. Forgive me. I had to make so many notes today because there was so much drama. I need to turn the page, and I need to say straight away, Swansea, are we saying they're safe now? 48? Surely. Everyone's going to say Birmingham went down with 50. Yeah, I know. It is a high tide. I've written rising tide as the caption, for God's sake. So, look, are they going to go down with 48? I don't think so, but maybe one more win for Swansea. But this has done them a hell of a lot of good, beating Derby 1-0. Especially when you consider if they had lost their game against Derby this round, Iain with the late winner, can we call a 79th minute winner a late winner? If they had lost that game, they would have been 1 point ahead of Derby. As it stands, they are 7 points ahead of Derby. So really, really massive goal. And when you actually look at it, I hadn't really noticed this. And I owe Alan Sheehan maybe some credit, who's taking the team at the moment. They've got 11 points in 7. So they're nicely above, well above a point per game, aren't they? And look, I mean, if they were to do that for the rest of the season, they'd probably be closer to the top half, wouldn't they, than the relegation zone. But such is the rising tide down there that they really needed it. Vital stuff. Let's talk about Derby, though. I'm sure Derby fans are going to be sat there going, well, mustn't grumble. Hell of a run. 4 straight wins. But they're still now 1 point. Well, no. It's goal difference, isn't it? They're tied with Cardiff, so they're 1 place above the relegation zone. And they now play Burnley and Portsmouth away, and we think Derby, it's going to be done at Pride Park if they're going to do it. So you wonder whether Derby could slip back in to the relegation zone over the course of this 3-game week. You want a home game, but the last home game you want at the moment is Burnley, who are the league leaders. There you go. Right, Oxford, fair play. Those who watch the channel all season will know I've tipped Oxford to get relegated many, many times in many different points of the season. I think, I guess the only time was when Ruddock came in and they had the massive new manager bounce. I thought, okay, they're going to be safe now. But then they did a horrible run since then, and I'm looking at it thinking, oh, are they going to slip in there? I think they might. What a win to beat Sheffield United. That is fantastic. And I don't care how you do it. Long throws, clean sheets, just win at home, whatever. They've been fantastic at home, by the way, under Rowett. Oxford, haven't they? I think was it 7 in 10? They've won under him at home, which is brilliant. back-to-back 1-0 wins. Just brilliant, brilliant stuff. We said earlier, we talked about the goal, didn't we? Dembele putting it in. On to 45 points now. Okay, we're pretty sure with the rising tide that they're definitely going to need more points or at least another win. But by God, they've pulled it out at the Kassam, haven't they, in the last 2 games with those 1-0s. Imagine that. Imagine they'd lost both of those games, they'd be on 39. They'd be 23rd in the table, give or take a goal difference, whatever. I'm hypothetical. I'm just saying how vital these 2 home wins have been for Oxford. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Proving me wrong. And we could still have Oxford, Pompey, Derby. They're all outside the bottom 3 at the moment. Obviously, Derby only on golden. You could still have the 3 promoted teams from League One all surviving. Massive win. By the way, guys, Oxford versus QPR on Wednesday night. Wow, wow, wow. And if Oxford win that, they really suck QPR. I know there's so much traffic, and traffic is important in terms of QPR. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams between them and the bottom 3. But Oxford are going to be looking at that saying, win the game, suck them in, move on to 48 points with only 5 games to play. And yeah, the home games, they are playing QPR at home. Yeah, those home games, that is huge. They're going to have that earmarked 3rd straight home win. Can they do it? Wow, what a win for Hull. And it says a lot about Hull. The fact that they've scored 14 points in the last 8 games now, and they are still up to their necks in trouble. That says to me 2 things. That says Tim Volta really failed, didn't he, earlier in the season? That was a terrible job by Volta and a terrible hire by Mr. Ilachali. And it says a lot about the rising tide and the fact that we have had a lot of teams winning in the bottom 6, bottom 8 in recent times, that they're still scrapping. What a goal, by the way, by Hughes. I was doing my research earlier and I put this on and I thought, okay, they're going to scramble a 94th minute winner if it's a defender popping it in late. But it's a towering John Terry Butcher type header by Hughes. Absolutely brilliant goal, smashed into the top corner as well. What a moment for the Hull fans there behind the goal at Hillsborough, where they got the win. Absolutely vital. I've said for a long time with Sellers and the Hull squad and, the fact it was an underachieving team, that they would be safe. But, I echo what I just said, that it's a rising tide and they were up to their necks in trouble. And they're still going to have to win a couple more games, aren't they? 44 points. A win and a draw in the last 6 would take them to 48. Oh, 2 wins and 50 and they're safe, aren't they? Surely. But hell of a last-minute winner there for Hull. Brilliant, brilliant stuff. Let us know if you're in the away end there at Hillsborough with the Hull fans. So that means Stoke slipped down a price. They drew at Preston. Now, Stoke fans are going to be like, oh, is that a great round? Given, I say it myself, it's a race. Just do better than the teams you're in the race with. I don't think that's a bad result for Stoke. We've said about Stoke, when we looked at the final 8, that the points were probably going to be front-loaded into the first 4 and at the Bet365. So, being they've got that point, they now, oh my God, Stoke versus Luton on Tuesday. I mean, that is gargantuan, isn't it? Especially with Luton picking up a point against Leeds. Luton could close to within a point of Stoke. So they're going to be going into that home game knowing a win would be gigantic, but just do not lose to Luton in the Nathan Jones derby on Tuesday. So I don't think that's a terrible result. QPR and Cardiff drew 0-0. I said they'd draw. I don't think I said 2-2 though, didn't I? And Cardiff do slip into that bottom 3. Well, actually, they were already in the bottom 3, weren't they? Because Derby beat Preston in midweek for the 4th straight win. So, I mean, this is tough for Cardiff, isn't it? I know it was kind of a head-to-head, even though there's a 5-point differential between them and QPR. Who have they got next? They go to Preston. It doesn't look great for Cardiff when you look at other teams scrapping and the likes of Oxford getting wins, Hull winning in the last minute. Luton have got like 11 points in 6, haven't they? And you look at Cardiff, yeah, they have got victories in there, but only Plymouth have won fewer games this season. And it is a concern that, yeah, okay, 3 games undefeated, but especially that Sheffield Wednesday game at home, they had chances to win that, didn't they? Right down at the bottom, Plymouth, great win against Norwich. I'm going to make my normal promise, like I did with Millwall in the playoffs. If Plymouth score another 4 points in this 3-game week and we end it at round 42 and they've got 41 points, then I'll start to re-include them. The argument we were making of Plymouth, oh, they're already down, was because they had a difficult home run. And I did include Norwich as a tricky game in that, I have to say. So great win for Plymouth, Hardy with both the goals. It does get harder. They've got Sheffield United, Coventry and Leeds now as their last 3 home games. So I do still think it will be too much for Plymouth. But look, if they now take 4 points from Swansea away and Sheffield United at home, I will revise that. They've got to go to Middlesbrough then. It's really got a horrible run in Plymouth. Excuse me. So I will reserve judgment unless they score 4 or even 6 points in the next couple of games. Wow. What a round, hey? Absolute drama. Who had Burnley going top after round 40? I did not, I've got to say. Who had Middlesbrough and Bristol City in there now, and Coventry and West Brom 7th and 8th. And the relegation, man, this is going to be cruel. Someone is going to be finishing the season well, I think, and getting relegated. It could be similar to last season, couldn't it? Where just brutal last day and Birmingham going down. Everybody won on the last day, didn't they? And Birmingham went down with 50 points. There are your hot takes. Get yours down there in the comments. It's a 3-game week. We're going to be back with Sam. Predictions on Monday. We'll try and do a couple of watch-alongs as well. Who is it on the watch-alongs this week? Who's on the main TV games? I think it's Middlesbrough, Leeds and Coventry, Portsmouth. I might even look at one of the relegation specials. Who knows? Let me know your thoughts on what we should do. Let me know your thoughts on the carnage of the Championship. And we'll see you tomorrow with more predictions with Sam.